Serious, NSFW, what's something that a friend/classmate did in high school that was seen as funny at the time, but you now realize was actually not okay? Story 1. Had a kid in my year who'd had a surgery that left a nerve bundle in his neck exposed. If pressed, it would paralyze him. From memory, it was for spina bifida, and for some ungodly reason he told everyone. Certain boys took great pleasure in going downstairs behind him and pressing it, which completely paralyzed him for a few seconds, and he'd fall like a brick. Usually onto whoever was in front of him. So dangerous. There were a fair few teeth knocked out because of this, his and other people's. It happened so much that in his third year the school installed an elevator and you had to have a special key to use it. He got the only permanent issue key at that time. Kids are assholes. Story 2. In the 6th grade, I had a friend who was a troublemaker and a class clown. I've always hated going to my math class because my teacher was a cranky old lady who'd yell at you for the smallest things. Me being an 11-year-old, I actually had the worst anxiety just knowing I could be the next person yelled at in front of the class. The one thing that helped get through the year was that friend, cause I knew he'd always make jokes and have me almost in tears cause they were that funny. One day, when my teacher walked out to use the bathroom, that friend went over to her desk, picked up the mug she was drinking out of, and spat out the biggest loogie into it. We all saw it and just waited for her to come back. 10 minutes later, as she was just normally teaching, she picks up her mug and chugs it down. Everybody just starts laughing and giggling, including me, but nobody said anything when she questioned it. It was horrible, but I wasn't about to be the kid who snitched. Later on during the school year, I guess we had a day where it didn't start at the normal 7:30 a.m. but instead 10:30 a.m., but I didn't know, so I showed up really early. A bunch of kids didn't get the memo, so we were all just placed in the cafeteria until school actually started. Around 9-ish, my math teacher noticed I was sitting out in the cold and invited me to her class where it was warm. When I got there, she let me work on my missed homework and even let me eat breakfast in her class. She asked me about home life, school life, if I had any friends, etc. She made me feel welcome. She then told me about her life, about her only son, about her husband who passed away from cancer 20 years back. She was very sweet. This was like back in 2008, and I think she was like 70 years old. I don't even know if she's still alive after all these years. But I wish I could go back and stop my friend from doing what he did. Story 3. My friend group, all girls, used to pants each other all the time. I had never done it but constantly had it done to me. Well, one day my dumbass decided to pants my BFF, and to my shock, nobody found it funny at all. They were all so angry at me, in fact, that I was uninvited to the sleepover that night. I didn't get it at first. I couldn't understand why it was so funny when they did it to me but not at all funny when I did it. Then it was explained back to me. My friends had always done this at sleepovers, privately in our own bedrooms. Still not okay, but arguably a very different situation from what I had done. My dumbass thought the perfect moment to try out pantsing was at a crowded football game. And in all my brilliance, I thought it was fine because we were at the front and nobody was on the field, so nobody could see. I didn't realize that everyone behind us could see perfectly fine. And behind us was not only her crush, but her super Christian parents and, as if straight out of a teen comedy, literally their pastor and his wife. And to make the entire situation worse, my BFF had a condition that caused her to have extremely heavy periods. She bled through and soaked her underwear, so she threw them in the trash. Her parents wouldn't let her wear tampons because nothing was more important than her virginity, but since she now didn't have underwear, a friend gave her a tampon. Her parents obviously saw everything and realized she was using a tampon, and she then had to endure months of talks from the pastor's wife about the virtue of a woman. No need to reprimand me here. I fully realize my mistake. Story 4. Our religion teacher went into the cupboard for supplies. She was quite strict and not liked, but now I'm an adult, I realize it doesn't excuse what happened next. The class clown snuck up and locked her in the cupboard. We all thought it was hilarious at the time and we all left the class. She was in there for the rest of the class until another teacher found her in there crying an hour later. She took 2 weeks off after that. Story 5. Few messed up kids in my primary school lit a teacher's car on fire just because she gave one of them a failing grade in midterm. It wasn't one of the mean teachers, she was mostly nice to students. Cops got involved, but don't think they got punished accordingly. I know one of them was in and out of juvie already, and were all around 13 to 14 years old, one was even in Nazi stuff. I know later on those kids got all tangled in dealing and robberies, probably all went to jail at some point. Story 6. It wasn't in high school, but we all found out in high school. A boy named Hendo, his last name is Henderson, so that was Slash as his nickname, was drunk and told people how his brother once sucked his thing in the bath. Well, this apparently happened. I'm not sure if he did actually confess to this or not. So everyone used to sing Hendo loves the bath, Hendo loves the bath, and it was constantly chanted at him. He was popular, so he'd get annoyed, but nothing really ever happened. Super messed up though. Story 7. Living in the Netherlands. Classmate was showing on his phone a whole online shop he claimed to have with all kinds of drugs and weapons. We thought it was funny because we didn't take it too seriously. He dropped out of school early and turned out to be a big drug dealer. Well, we could have known, I guess. Story 8. This was in elementary. My dad bought a brand new bike for me and I rode it to the park, and these older kids came up to me and asked if one of them could take it for a test drive. I said okay, and about 10 seconds in, I see the guy riding my bike being pushed off and my bike being stolen right in front of me. The older kids helped me look for my stolen bike, but growing up I realized that they plotted this whole thing, and yeah, I basically gave my brand new bike away. Story 9. This actually happened to me. A group of 3 kids that used to be my friends invited me to come hang out with them at the lake. I had kind of been outcast from the group because I wasn't cool enough or whatever, so I was eager to get together with them. When I got there, they had apparently stolen all of my school books out of my locker and threw them all in the lake right in front of me. They laughed hysterically and just left without saying a word. The next day, when I went to confront them about it at school, one of them had collected a Ziploc bag full of all 3 of their clipped fingernails and toenails and threw them in my face. Some got in my mouth, some got in my eyes, some got in my ear. I broke down crying and gagging. Nobody faced any consequences other than me because I pushed the kid away from me and he fell into a teacher carrying coffee. I was suspended for 2 days and had to pay for all the books that they destroyed because I had no proof that they were the ones that did it. I didn't do well in school and had anger problems, so the teachers assumed that I was the one who did it and tried to blame the other kids. School is really rough, man. Story 10. Had a classmate come in every so often with a bruise or small cut on her face or arm, but she was part of the punk scene, so I chalked it up to maybe hopping into mosh pits, although I had never heard her mention going to shows. At one point during our junior year of high school, she spoke to a few people sitting close, myself included, about going through the emancipation process of separating from her parents and living with a friend. It was also around this time that I noticed the bruises weren't occurring anymore. It took me a full 5 years to figure that one out. It's been a full 18 years since the incidents, and she's doing much better. Story 11. I had this teacher whose breath was horrible. Like someone literally took a crap in her mouth. Horrible. Anyway, this one kid left a big bottle of mouthwash on her desk when she wasn't looking one day. The whole class was laughing. Then she turned around and saw it, and you could see her kind of die inside. She went on to tearfully explain to the class how she had some kind of an intestinal issue that she has been suffering with and that she realizes her breath is bad. Then she excused herself from the class for the remainder of the period. Now as a kid, I thought that was hilarious until she started to cry. And how she was able to continue teaching us monsters after that is not something I will ever understand. And if that had been my wife or mother, I would have encouraged her to quit. Story 12. I remember having what was called the man or mouse test. Basically, guys would take one of those big pink erasers and start going to work on their arms, and the one who lasted the longest was the real man. Plenty of bloody and scabbed up arms around school. I am not ashamed to say that I was a mouse because I never participated. There were plenty of other instances that ranged from questionable to outright dangerous. Bottle rockets being shot down the hallway, filling milk jugs with acetylene and lighting them up with a torch, damaging the brand new school bus with a shot put, etc. High school was messed up. Story 13. I had some classmates that were taking money from another kid in order to hang out with him, and then they were bragging about it to the rest of the school. The kid paying was one of those really invisible kids that you barely noticed and only knew if they were taking the same subjects as you. This went on for at least 2 years, and the kid would be giving them what amounts to 20 to 30 euros per person per activity, on top of paying for whatever cost the activity had, at least according to what the other kids were saying when they bragged about it. Story 14. My year 11 math teacher was an elderly woman tasked with teaching a lower middle math group. She couldn't control the class, and it became a game for them to wind her up, because she'd almost always get another teacher to tell the class off. At the time, the school shared stories about the things they did to make her lose her cool. But thinking about it, the students bullied her. Not cool. One point where I did step in though, was when some of the students tried to throw things into her coffee while she wasn't looking: erasers, paper clips, that kind of thing. I tipped her off before she was able to drink it. She grew to like me because I was one of the only people in class who wasn't a dickhead. I was just an idiot and didn't revise for my exams the previous year. She was a nice enough woman, just not a very commanding teacher. Story 15. One of my friends was really boy crazy in a way we all thought was laughable. In particular, she tended to crush on younger boys, like freshmen and sophomores, when we were seniors. She got assigned as an office aide and would use downtime in the school's front office to look up her crush's schedules in the system so she could make copies, learn where their classes and lockers were, and coincidentally be near there when they were. We teased her a lot about being a stalker who was into kids, but it was all just joking around. In retrospect, it was a lot creepier and more serious than we tend to see, and she never did outgrow her taste in young boys. Uneasy face. Story 16. When I was 16, I had a really bad home life. I started self-harming and assumed no one had noticed. Well, my bullies apparently did. They had a running joke of calling me Barbie because they said I was fake. So they went to the dollar store, bought a cheap Barbie, cut off all its hair very choppily, and used scissors or something to cut little lines in the doll's arm. Then used a red pen to go over the lines so it was a destroyed Barbie with fake self-harm cuts on it. My locker was on the end of the row, and if you kicked it just right, it would open. My bullies were my best friends at one point, so they knew that. They put the doll in my locker. When I told people it happened, they thought it was clever and laughed about it. It wasn't funny. At all. Story 18. In high school we had a Japanese language class, and one of the teachers was actually from Japan. He had an accent, and the kids would try to get him to say parallelogram as a joke. As an adult, I realize how messed up that is to make fun of someone for their accent. But the teacher caught on and would just say parallelogram in Japanese. Story 19. In high school there was this basket of condoms that were free for any student to take. In grade 9 I had a friend who would use a thumbtack and poke small, unnoticeable holes in the condoms and put them back. Thought it was funny at the time, but goddamn was that a dick move. Story 20. So when we were in high school, teachers had to get the attendance through computer before the lesson starts. They were doing this by clicking a shortcut on desktop. So a friend of mine changed the URL to NoBrank. I don't know if you guys know, but back in the day it was a famous prank site. He also turned speaker on to max volume and also turned on the projector, which projects the PC screen to a massive board. Teacher came and clicked the shortcut. The music started to playing do 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 in whole class watching two old fully naked gay men doing nasty things on the big screen. Also the thing with that site was you couldn't press X to quit the video or browser, it would not ever let you quit. Teacher got furious while we all laughed and had to shut the computer after multiple failed attempts to close the video. Yeah, after that incident our class lost the computer for a whole year.